Whenever you are. What's that right there? The wrestling.
I know, I so wanted to be there now.
Oh, we're live. Awesome. So we will call to order. Wow, that didn't work out very well. The administrative meeting on August 8th at 8 a.m. And we have Alderman Cleve.
Am I supposed to say here?
Sure.
Okay.
Alderman Presley.
Here?
Mr. Roth.
Here.
I can't remember.
Kelly O'Malley.
Kelly O'Malley is here. Mr. Myers is here, and Ms. Barfield is here. So today we're really going to go through some updates regarding Red Cedar. We have not met in quite some time, and we have not met especially since the change to alderman following the election in April. Is there a certain way you wanted to walk through the different updates, or did you have something to start off with?
So why don't we follow through the agenda and elect a chair first?
Okay. So I currently, up until this meeting, was the chair. I have no reason to keep the chair, so it's, I guess, up to us on what we want to, or if somebody had a recommendation for the chair of this committee.
Do you want to keep the chair?
I can.
I nominate Andy Nemeth.
I would second that nomination.
Well, I guess I cleared that up. I can't all in favor my own, but I guess then we would, is that procedure?
So all in favor?
So all in favor say,
Aye.
excellent. I will abstain from voting for myself. Excellent, so that's good.
I would nominate Rick Presley as vice chair.
Is there a vice chair?
That's what it says on the agenda.
Well, then, I would nominate James Cleve as vice chair.
Oh, good.
I think that's a much better nomination.
Yeah.
Rick, who are you nominating?
I nominate James Cleve.
Oh, look at that. James, would you?
Okay, I'll accept the nominations.
Thank you,
Let's do
James.
this. Let's do this thing.
Very good. So then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Are you going to abstain from
I guess
voting
I
for
should,
yourself?
because it's for myself,
Okay.
so I abstain.
Cool. Excellent. And since I don't have the agenda in front of me for some reason, Kim, what would be the
I
next?
was wondering.
Approve the minutes
Approve the
from
minutes.
March 8th.
I got it now.
So if you would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I would move to approve the minutes, even though I wasn't here. I did read through them very carefully,
Been a
and they
while.
appear to be normal minutes, but I was not here.
And I second that motion.
Excellent. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstain? Excellent. And I do have the agenda up now, so
Great.
just took me a minute to find it. All right, so now we have old business. So then we have a Red Cedar update, including the budget for Red Cedar. So I don't know if, is that you, Mr. Myers? Steve or Mr. Roth?
Certainly, I can do the.
Yeah, I think Steve is
construction
Best, he's been the lead on this project. He's attended the meetings with the contractor, so forth. So yes, please go ahead.
However, I will say that in my report to the board, last board meeting, there was a lengthy update on Red Cedar. There's no new news since then, so it's kind of redundant. What you've heard or read before is going to be reiterated today. However,
Well, I think it's also, in addition to us getting updated, I think it's also a good chance to update the public who may not have read that or seen it or anything like that, too.
and here's
so.
some pictures that weren't included last time,
Cool.
right? So pictures are always good.
They are.
So as far as where Red Cedar stands, right now, LCG Construction is to complete a schedule for review, just a kind of a punch list, and from here on out, that has not been turned in yet. I would expect that potentially Wednesday at the next construction team meeting. So that's Wednesday morning. There's an interior punch card that will be then turned in, hopefully, on Wednesday, and then I'll be able to report that later. The front doors, the two red doors that you see in the pictures, you know, when we did an assessment of them, and we had several people come and look at it, including the mayor, city administrator, Roth, and others, the experts point towards replacing those two doors with two identical doors that would swing out for emergency egress. Presently, they swing in, and that's problematic, although it would be allowable because it would be grandfathered into a historic building. But when you look at the air infiltration that we would get from those old doors, when you look at that emergency exit calculation, when you look at the security enhancement that we would get from new doors, it was kind of I don't want to say a no-brainer because it did require some thought, but it is advisable to go ahead and replace them. So they're on order. They will be about 14 weeks out still. Now, these were ordered months ago. So December-ish, we're hoping. Rick knows all about those supply problems, but that's what we're facing. A site punch target would be the end of this month, early September. So then we'll go in with an inspection team. We'll look for any kind of little deficiencies or dings in the drywall or paint missing here or there, nail holes, anything like that we can find. And we'll have a sticker party. And then they have a certain amount of time to fix those challenges. The plumbing work, the fixtures are 60% complete. Mechanical work, there's 2 units that are operational now. Large unit is set in the merchant yard. Duct connections are not yet complete, or the mechanical yard rather. All fire protection rough ends are complete. The electrical rough ends are complete. The cedar cladding on the outside is 90% complete. Insulation's 100% complete. The hollow metal door frames are 100% complete. The aluminum storefront system is 95% complete. There is shiplap at the log infill is 95% complete. Gypsum board is 95% complete. Ceiling grid is 90% complete. We're still waiting on installing the actual tiles in the ceiling grid until the floors are resurfaced or refinished. The tile floor and the walls are 95% complete as far as tile work goes. Wood flooring repairs are 10% complete. So you can see some of that in those photos. So they've got a long way to go on that. The cabinetry is 10% complete. All the cabinets are on the site now, so that's good. The front porch is only 5% complete. There's photos you see that there's a lot of tearing out yet to do, and then that'll be refinished. The shoring is all in place. Columns and vestibule is removed. The concrete slab is partially removed. The site walls are 95% complete. The monument sign concrete wall is 100% complete, but the signage is to be determined. So let's back up for just a second to site walls. Those foundation walls that you see to the right or to the east of Red Cedar's building, that's going to be the home of the new pavilion someday in a phase 2 kind of thing. So just for the public, you've mentioned they may or may not understand what that is, and I'll just reiterate that those foundation walls represent the height of the grade change of the parking area whenever that process happens here in the coming weeks. And then that will be, like I said, the home of a pavilion for outdoor events to occur in the future. But the pavilion is not part of this Phase 1 project.
So when you say the grade change, you mean basically the parking lot's going to come up to the height of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what I understand.
Well, not the entire height of the foundation.
Well, I mean
that's
like
there.
level, but
Right.
Pretty
hopefully not
close.
the big gap
No.
that's there now.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah.
Then there's going to have a walkway to the extreme east of the property edge, or to extreme east of those foundations. There'll be a walkway that'll go back to behind the building. There'll also be a walkway in between the Red Cedar building and this pavilion when it happens. And that'll be a stair step kind of thing. The other is ADA accessible. That'll lead to the bathrooms, and then also back in the back of the building in that gravel area now, which the use of which is yet to be determined. Okay? So the monument sign, let's talk about that for a second. So there's a concrete wall where there used to be an old barbecue building. This little barbecue shack stood there and served public for barbecue for decades, all right? But the building itself was not structurally sound. And so it would have required so many thousands of dollars to repair that building or replace it, that it wasn't deemed wise, and not by me, but by others, and that building was razed or torn down. So what is there now is a monument sign, or the home for a monument sign, that concrete wall. And that monument sign is a Route 66 shield that the architects designed early on in the project. So that shield needs to be applied to the concrete wall, and there's two options, really. Steve, is that right? There's just two, painted or sculpted.
I think so, yes.
Good way to say it. So there's different shades of the paint, different shades of the sculpting, white, black, gray, whatever, but the decision needs to be made on whether or not that's to be painted. First, you seal the concrete, if you're going to paint it, so that the paint, when you apply it, doesn't run into the concrete channels. That's one option, and that's what actually was drawn on the architect's schematics whenever they presented it. So the other option that has been presented to us is to have it laser cut out of metal. And that laser would then, the laser metal shield would be applied to the wall with standoffs to where when you light it, it'll have shadows back behind it, which I think is pretty cool. But it's also more costly. And I don't have those numbers of either in front of me, but that's a discussion that we need to have sooner rather than later, so we can order either the painting done or order the shield made.
So with that, I would want to make sure that we coordinate with the Historical Society to ensure that, because I know there was a lot of words had regarding, is this a Route 66 thing, is it not, and having the Route 66 shield on there. I know there was a lot of, and I don't remember all the discussions because it's been a while, but do we know when the next Historical Society?
Our Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. If there's any way that you could, Steve, have some, I don't know, drawing might be a little too specific or whatever, but examples, I guess, of the two versions maybe, and at least some kind of cost estimate to discuss that with the Historical Society on Wednesday.
I'll be ready.
I want to make sure that we get their input as part of that. I'll call Dennis in the next couple days and chat about it with him a little bit, but I wouldn't want to make that even close to a decision without their involvement, so.
Okay.
Can I just add one thing? The painted wall is what's in the project, that's in the contract. The contractor had suggested this alternate. Right now, we don't have an actual final design, nor do we have the cost, is that correct?
And I don't remember seeing one.
Yeah, I don't think we have that. If we want to change, then we can get feedback from Historical Society, this committee, and ultimately it goes to the Board of Aldermen. But it would be a change order, so just to be clear on that.
So right now, all that we paid for was just the cement. We didn't
No,
really.
there's a painted sign
Okay.
in the project.
Can we get a copy? Do we have a copy of that somewhere? I don't remember what that looked
I'll
like.
find it.
Okay. If you could email that to us, that'd be great,
Okay.
because I don't remember what that looked like anymore.
And to be clear, Mr. Chair, are you looking for a recommendation from the Historical Society meeting or commission back to you guys and then the board?
Well, now that Steve just cleared up that we have approved an existing one, I would want,
If they want to make a change?
if they want to make a change, it should come here and then to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay.
But if the existing one, we may have approved that, and I just forgot a while ago with both committees, so we should just be able to take a look at what was approved and then the two, I guess, alternates, we could call them. And then we should definitely make a decision between both parties, so.
Okay. Just for clarification, there's the two different alternates, but each alternate has variations.
Right.
So there's lots to choose from.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is only going to happen if the museum, or if the Historical Society is recommending a change from the current plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Kim.
Outstanding RFIs, there are none. Outstanding ASIs, there are none. Inspections are done for the most part, with exception of some final inspections and then the occupancy. You all know that MoDOT cooperated with us on the roadway, so that's done. There is a little bit of work yet in the fire protection as far as a Knox box location that's going to be reviewed by the fire marshal. I'm looking down here for the next. Okay, so perimeter ceiling trim is 95% complete, so there's a little work to be done there. And the painting inside is not finished as far as all the trim. That needs to be done. I have a very long list of things to sort through here. We've approved, this is kind of a cool thing, but and people need to understand, interior walls, the finish of them, okay, well, you got logs, right? You got chinking. And this being such an old structure, there's variations to the coloration of that chinking. So when you walk in and you look, there's areas that are the original chinking that has been cleaned but has not been repainted. And for historical preservation, the preservationists say, don't paint it. You leave it the color that it is, all right, even though it's a dingy white, all right? So there's areas that were so bad, they had to be painted, and those are bright white. So when you first walk in, just so you understand, you're going to see some that are original, and then you're going to see some that are painted. And if it turns out to be a problem later on, and people say, that looks terrible, we can always paint it, okay, what was left. But we're just, for the project, and then add in here, Kelly, if you think I'm missing anything, but for the project, we just refinished what had to be, okay? The stuff that was in good shape, but yet dingy, that did not call for repaint, okay?
Is there like a section that hasn't been in a section that has type thing, or is it just random all over the place? One reason I say that is because it might be
Sectional.
something cool to put a little plaque on them and say, this is the original.
Yeah,
This is what it
there
looked
is
like.
sections.
And that way it's called out and they can,
Right.
people understand that it wasn't an accident.
And a lot of it is going to be covered with exhibits. So the actual units that the exhibits are on kind of line one of the walls and cover a lot of that old that did not get painted. But you'll still see some, okay?
Is there any on the outside that has that variation?
Not to my knowledge. I
Okay.
don't think so.
I was going to say, because if there wasn't room for a plaque on the inside, maybe that's an educational thing we could do outside too, so.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, so this next part saddens me, and that is there are two large oaks that are to the outside of the tree on the west, or the outside of the building on the west side. All precautions were made to try to save both those trees. However, there is one of the trees that is looking sick, and that's the one that's furthest to the north, or furthest away from Route 66. The one closest looks healthy still, which is good. But I've contacted an arborist to come out and take a look to see if it's possible to save that second oak. It's possible that it's not going to make it. So that's just the facts. But we did try. However, the excavation and, tractors running close to the drip line of those trees and that kind of thing, they can affect them. So we might lose one. Hopefully not both. So, let's see if there's anything else here. Nothing, there's just so many things that are done. It's amazing.
Are they still meeting every other Wednesday?
Oh, every third Wednesday now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you, it fell off my calendar, but could you email us with what those days are? So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have had a chance to walk the site.
Not yet.
It's a pretty educational event when you go and do that, and they walk you through everything that's going on. I haven't been there in a bit. So maybe in the next couple Wednesdays when they do that, we can either get together as a group or we can go separate, it doesn't really matter. To really kind of get the lay of the land. I think it'd probably be good for all of us.
I agree.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I think that's it in terms of the construction.
Other than the doors, is
Okay.
there a projected end date?
So we're still hopeful in November we can have a soft opening. I'm kind of wondering about that now. Kind of, my gut feeling is it might be pushed back, but we'll see. We don't want to push back beyond December because December we have program already in place. So the next meeting, just so you know, is August 10th,
Okay.
coming right up at 9 a.m.
What time's the historical meeting? 5:30?
5:30.
Okay.
As far as budget goes, contract value now is $2,164,189. That was the original contract, base bid plus alternates. I don't have any other kind of budgetary information with this. Steve, do you have anything to add?
The contract value now, do you have that in front of you?
That's what it says, the contract value, original contract, base bid plus alternates is $2,164,189.
Right,
That's all
that
it
was the
says.
original. The contract value now, do you have that?
No.
Okay. I can get that. I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay. So are there any other, besides the front doors, are there any other lead times that we need to be concerned about with anything?
There were some light fixtures that hadn't arrived yet. A few electrical parts are still out. But aside from that, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, is there any update on the general, like the museum side of it, like where we're going with that, what's going on?
Actually, can I interrupt?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure where you were with your update. Just to be clear, there are no change orders that are hanging out there right now, nothing that requires board action, with the potential exception of that sign that he just described earlier. There is an issue that's arisen over the last, say, month, related to the actual neon sign that's on top of the building. Were you gonna address that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That, I think we should get some feedback from this committee on, so,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
All right, so the old neon sign that was restored by the Route 66 Association, and we had a lighting ceremony and put it back up, and then when the construction started, we took it down. It goes in the eaves of the very front of the building. That's where it is right now, is in storage. And the location or the reinstallation of that sign is in question. There are two sides of this discussion, really. One is the originalists. They want to leave it where it was, okay? Don't change it. And that is one of the sentiments of the Route 66 Association who restored it. They were restoring it with the understanding it was going to go right back where it was. Since this discussion has opened, because there's some folks that are the ones that are preservationists too, they want to save that sign, but they want to make it part of the display on the inside of the wall, or inside of the building. When you first walk in, there's a large wall straight ahead. That's where they'd like to place this sign. Part of their argument is that the sign says restaurant on it. Red Cedar Inn Restaurant. The fact that it says restaurant is now misleading because people think Red Cedar Restaurant, I'm stopping and getting a bite to eat. And then when they go in and there's no food, now are they disappointed? Route 66 Association argues, no, there's folks that understand that this is a museum. You're also going to probably have a sign outside that promotes what you're doing there, and it'll say museum on it, Museum and Visitor Center or whatever it says, and that it's not an issue. So the question is, do you allow for that sign to be put inside as part of our exhibits? And if you do so, shouldn't you replace it on the outside with a sign that does make sense, maybe in neon? It says Red Cedar, same design, Red Cedar Inn Museum and Visitor Center. Maybe that's what you do. It's up in the air. There's been no estimates yet received. We've met with a couple of different three actually, sign companies out there are discussed with, and those bids are coming in to talk about what should an on-premise sign in front of the building look like. We even talked to the History Museum folks about the location of that sign. There's an old sign post that's at the extreme eastern edge of the building, or the lot, that it could be used, repurposed for it, but it's not ideal because of the sight, the line of sight, and the amount of time that people have to study it if they're coming from the east heading west. They see that sign, and by the way, that sign would block the building, the view of the building, if it was there on the eastern part. So it has been discussed and recommended that that sign would be moved to the middle of the building, its proximity on the parking lot, and then placed right at the edge of the parking lot near the sidewalk in Route 66. So that's the on-premise sign location that's kind of been determined or recommended. You all would be the determining board. But what does that sign say? What does it look like? Those recommendations are coming in from the sign companies. And then what do we do with that neon sign on the building? Do you just leave it there, take it inside, and replace it with what? Kelly, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the Red Cedar Inn sign, we talked to the whole historic society and therefore moving it in, making it a photo opportunity for all those folks coming in. It would be on a wall dedicated to Red Cedar. So all the information around there would also be Red Cedar history and information. It is not the original sign that was on the building. The original sign was a wooden white sign. So it's not original to the building. Like he said, we did ask, somebody said they could make a Red Cedar Inn sign, and they said it doesn't have to be neon. They can make it almost identical with LED, which is cheaper than neon. And I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing is the restaurant part. They said during COVID, when it was up, people would stop in over there while some of the city folks who were working, thinking it was a restaurant. So instead of myself and whoever's working getting upset guests who may come in thinking it is a restaurant, they can come in and actually enjoy their visit with us. So I think that's kind of where it's at. He said he spoke to the Route 66 Association. I still want to speak to them as well. But I think a good choice would be moving it inside.
Gentlemen?
I agree. I would, the restaurant is an issue for me, as far as I'm concerned too. So, I actually, not a fan of not putting it back the way it was, but I absolutely understand the argument and I agree with it.
Mr. Presley?
Yeah, I kind of on the fence, actually. If we were to stay true to the building, then I would say that it'd be best to go back to the original sign, which was a painted block sign with block letters. But back then, I think the building was white too. So I think that I I love the idea of it being inside as a photo op. I think that that makes a lot of good sense with that sign as it has been preserved. I am concerned about the restaurant part of that for people that come in from, out of town and from different areas that don't understand fully what we've done. And what I mean by that is when the operation is closed, so they come into town and they plan a dinner at the restaurant and then they go in and it's a museum rather than a place to eat. If there was a place to offer some kind of food inside, which I could see then maybe, but honestly, I think that if it's not original to the building, then there's a good cause to move it inside. I definitely would love to have a picture of myself in front of that sign, and I'm not a big fan of taking a picture of myself. But I can't climb the roof and get that done. So I also don't like how the sign hides the two windows but doesn't hide it completely. So if you look at the original building, it almost looked like it was haphazardly put onto the building. So that's another good reason why I would say that it's best to put it inside. And then I would be more in favor of a lighted sign maybe outside. I'm not sure about a LED, to replace the Red Cedar restaurant sign.
If I could add, just real quick. Sure. You mentioned that the building used to be white. It will be again.
Okay.
Okay, so the architect's rendition of it was to bring it back to what it was originally. So having that block original sign recreated and lighted, I would say just, with a couple floods,
That'd be cool.
that's possible.
Yeah. I'm in full agreement with what you guys said. I think it is disappointing that we can't kind of do what we had wanted to do, to put that back up there. But I do think that, again, those are great photo opportunities on the inside. It's a good historical thing to discuss. And I don't know, maybe someday if we get an eatery, or as we kind of progress through the years, maybe there will come a point where we put it back in the building then. We can always change things if we do get to that. Because, again, you don't want to, frustrate people that legitimately thought that they could stop with their family, haul all the kids out of the car, and there's no restaurant there. So we want to make sure that we're keenly aware of that. And then just ensuring that coming up with some different drawings or the block. I like your idea of putting together the old sign. I would like to know, though, what it would look like if we did the LED thing, because that might be kind of neat too, to really kind of show it off and have a bright sign on it. But floods might be the better bet too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
if we could maybe for the next meeting in about 4 to 6 weeks, maybe have a rendition of kind of how that works. If you get it way before that, just email it to us, then we can take a look. So I think that'd be great.
If I could, and I think that they would appreciate it if I did, but I just didn't pull this up yet until now. The letter I got from the Route 66 Association, I think we ought to read, so you guys can hear it in their terms. To whom it may concern, I'm writing to express the association's concern over options being discussed for the sign at Red Cedar. We are led to believe that the one option under consideration includes displaying the sign inside the building rather than in its original location. While we understand the wish to protect the sign, we feel any risk is minimal given its position and the relatively busy location. We also understand some concern was expressed over the word restaurant. Our position would be very few, if any, visitors would be concerned. There will be plenty of signage identifying the location as a museum. Also, Route 66 visitors tend to be interested more in the heritage of a location and are unlikely to be offended or disappointed. Among some of the future options under consideration for the site include food service in some sort anyway. So it would be the position of the Route 66 Association of Missouri that we assisted in the restoration of the sign in order to see it placed in its original position and used in its original historical context, not inside the building. We did not raise and expend association funds to have the sign altered in any significant way. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Rich Dinkla, who is the president of the Route 66 Association. There you go.
I mean, And I think all of us have made really good points.
Do you know what kind of money was expended to restore that sign?
I've not seen a number.
Couldn't have been cheap.
I know, I'm just trying to,
My only concern is also the group or the association that wants to do great things for Red Cedar. I also don't want to frustrate them either. I mean,
We need to be very
they
sensitive.
took the
right?
sign, they restored the sign, they put this, I mean, they had a lot to do with it. I guess my question would be back to them, when you have discussions with them, is there an alternate place that they would prefer instead of inside? Like, is there a way? And I know you said on the east end, there's that mount or whatever, but the trees kind of block it if we put it there. Is there a better spot on the building besides up top that we could also still have it as a photo op, but it's still outside and visible, which I would assume is probably their biggest concern. They're probably not as excited about where it goes, but more of that people can see it from the road and as they drive by and stuff. Maybe we should have or could you have a conversation and ask them if there's other alternates besides hanging it on the building that would make them pleased?
Well, I think hanging it outside anywhere, like say you took the Route 66 shield and you used
Sure.
that as the backdrop for the sign, it still would have the same effect as far as promoting it as a restaurant.
Sure. And I don't disagree with them. You're going to have randoms, I guess, that's going to happen with. I don't think it's going to be a regular thing. I don't know.
I think with the restaurant part, because so many people stopped during COVID, I feel like that right there is telling us. And COVID was a time things were shut down, and people thought that that was a restaurant, and there weren't necessarily people traveling Route 66. And that's,
But do we know how many people stopped and asked
I
that
can ask
question?
Chris Fowler, because he was the one who told me that when he was working over there, that people stopped daily.
Okay.
So, and I would assume the same thing if I was traveling into a city and just saw it, especially if there's not a ton of restaurants and you've just come off, and it's the first building you see coming from Six Flags that you'd be like, oh, hey, I stopped and eat.
what type of signage identifies it as a museum and visitor center?
Well, it's yet to be created. We've asked for 3 different bids from companies. We're kind of waiting on that.
Is it going to be front and center and bigger that
Yeah, we're
people,
looking-
when they drive by, I mean, they may see restaurant, but then they're like, well, it says,
So let's go back to how this came about. So the electronic digital board that's right here, it replaced an existing one. And that existing one was very pixelated, black and white. Now, I think we could run colors in it, but it was very limited as to its functionality, and not at all the resolution that you see out here. It's more, I don't want to say it was like a state highway sign where, you know, they talk about amber alerts and stuff on the MoDOT signs. It's not that bad, but nonetheless, it was pixelated and limited in its functionality. So that sign is in storage over at the city shed. And the question came up at by the Historical Society, what's going on with that sign, and can we repurpose it at Red Cedar? So that sign is about, I want to say 8 foot by 12 foot, pretty close. All right, so it's, this one out here now is 9 by 14. So the sign is pretty good size, and if you put it out on that existing post like we talked about, it would effectively block the view of the Red Cedar building to eastbound traffic, okay, until they were past that sign, or almost past our parking lot, right? So the functionality not being what modern technology offers, and the size of that sign and that location, really, and if in the new location that I talked about earlier, if you put that sign there, its proximity to the highway is very, very close, all right? So then its pixelation reduces the readability of that sign if you were to repurpose the old sign. And there is no way that I would recommend repurposing that old sign at the Red Cedar, okay? I've been in the sign
had
business
me
for
at
20
blocking the
years.
view.
Huh?
I said, you had me at blocking the view.
Okay, so, what I would recommend is consideration of another digital sign, similar but smaller than what we have at the highway. So those signs are what we've asked the 3 different sign companies to bid. So this is looking at probably a 4x8 or maybe a 5x10 in that they have 2-foot graduations. It would give Kelly and her team that someday in the future is assembled full functionality, very, very high quality digital to where you can put pictures, photographs of faces or whatever, and it would be very productive and efficient. So, of course, it's going to cost more. If you sold the old sign, you might get $1,000 for it, because I don't think the demand's going to be very high. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's talking to some other people who are experts in the field, and they agree.
The longer we wait, the less it's going to be worth.
Exactly right.
Yes, absolutely.
So to replace it with something, when Kelly and I first started talking about it, and we love the idea to kind of go off of a big cedar lodge or a Bass Pro Cabela's kind of look with the logs coming up on the frame of the sign and maybe a little roof up on top of it, that would look cool. But Derek Pryor is our designer of the exhibits, okay? In his professional opinion, he says, don't go big, go small, because whatever you do, big-wise, is going to detract from red cedar. And we agree. So we're simpling up that original idea, although we still like it.
We still do like it.
Thought it was cool. But
Our back pocket for later.
Right.
and just simple it up by going with some log framing, but very basic and very clean. Derek likes that idea. So that's what we're talking about doing for the on-premise sign. But we need to get MoDOT right-of-way clearance as far as new sign goes.
Which that's good. And what I'm really looking for is there something that is going to be permanently saying this is a museum visitor center? I mean, I know this sign could cycle through and whatever and would say it, but I mean, is there something that clearly says, and this is going back to the restaurant being on top of the building, is there something else that clearly says this is a visitor center?
Right. On that frame that would frame the digital portion, it would say whatever it is.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, I know you had been asked, and I wasn't at the last Historical Society meeting, but for the bids on those new digital signs, is that for this Wednesday, or did you give that at the prior meeting?
Is that for this Wednesday?
Will you bring the bids?
The bids for the new sign. You were supposed to go back and get prices for a 4x8 or a 5x10 or whatever.
I don't know that we'll have those bids yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we just asked, we don't have the numbers yet?
Right.
Okay, all right, sorry. I mean, I'd like to see all of that. I think we said it at the Historical Society meeting a couple months ago that, you know, we spend $2 million on the building and we're going to put an $80 digital sign out in front of it. Like, that's just not acceptable.
Right.
It was a great idea in the beginning to save it just in case, but I think we're pretty quickly moving past that. When do you think you'll have those bids?
I'd say within the next week or two.
Okay. And then once you get those, can you forward them to Historical and to this body, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So then do we have an update with anything with Derek or the inside of the building or?
I'm going to turn that over to Kelly because she's had more conversations with him in the recent.
And to pause one second, do you guys know who Derek Pryor is? We hired Derek Pryor as the designer of the inside, and obviously he's helping with other things for Red Cedar, and he has a very long resume of amazing things that he's done, from the John Deere Museum, I think the Jack Daniels, if I'm remembering right.
Right.
Some
Very good.
amazing thing he did in Vermont with like trees and, I mean, he comes highly recommended. He lives right down the road in Eureka, which is kind of cool, so we kept it local with that. But he's the guy that's assisting with Kelly and Steve and everybody to really put together an amazing experience when you walk in the doors, so.
Right now, he's still working on the timeline for, I think he feels confident about his Route 66 timeline. He's working on his specific timeline. He is now to the point where he wants us to find certain pictures so he can put them on, to be blown up and placed on the ceiling to floor visuals that he'll be having. He has just started looking at display cases, which is, I kind of was talking to him about that because I'm a little concerned because I know they are, they're pretty far out to be able to get them made or even purchased right now, just to make sure we can have them so we can display stuff for the rotating exhibit along with some of the exhibits that he's going to have on the wall. So his plan is to have, when you walk in, the wall right away with a window, there'll be nothing on there. And then from the corner to the door in the middle, he will have all Route 66. And then from the other side of that door, all the way around the corner to the next door will be all Pacific history.
Very cool.
That's pretty much what we got going on right now.
All right. Do you need any authorizations from us at the moment, or?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay.
Can you tell them about the conversation with Ginger?
We only had,
Ginger Gallagher, did you meet with her?
I met with her for 10 minutes, I had to go.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Ginger did meet with Derek and I the other day down at Little Ireland, and she had some good stories. She's going to get with me again because I'm going to do an interview with her so we can get that on video as well.
Oh, that'd be
So, I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, tell them about your camera.
Oh, I am getting a camera that's going to allow me to do the interviews. There's a couple interactive screens that we're going to have in the museum so you can like touch it and you can hear somebody speak. So I'm going to work on some of those interviews. We'll have some rotating ones, but it will also allow us to video and get the history at least on a card that we can save and get it onto a hard drive so we can use it later if we do any kind of projects, but also to preserve our own history as well. The Historical Society gave me 238 names they would like me to interview. That will take about 10 years, so we will narrow it down a little bit to start getting those that we think, hey, let's get them on right now. Like Ginger would be a great one to have, just to be able to talk about that. She plans on being there for the opening, which is great. So people can meet with her and talk with her.
Sure.
Thanks.
That's awesome. I know you don't like selfies, but do you want us to interview you, Rick?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I have no history worth of value to the museum.
Okay. So next site update.
Okay, ready?
Sure.
All right, so Charles Branch is the name of our contact at Next Site. He and I have been in touch and communication over the last several months. He tells me that they have reached out to 75 different developers now, as well as 100 different restaurant contacts to present Pacific's demographics, to present what makes sense they're only reaching out to organizations that make sense for them to be here, okay? So we have been put in front of them. There is a base camp that I've started training on. There is, it's a lengthy and detailed questionnaire that I am in the process of working to fill out. We have been represented at the ISCS convention in Las Vegas in early summer. That was a little bit of a challenge in that COVID, the tales of COVID were still in effect, and so it wasn't as well attended as what they had hoped in the past. It has been a very well attended event, and they expect it to build back up. But we were represented there. There's 4 more conventions that they will be attending in the fourth quarter of this year in Florida, Chicago, Atlanta, and Nashville. They will be following up with developers and the restaurateurs, hopefully attaining letters of intent and purchase agreements. In the meantime, I will be working on this base camp as well as questionnaire and the inventory of available properties to present to them. And the next site, of course, they're going to work on those contacts and getting back in touch with them in the follow-ups. I've asked them also to prepare a demographic info sheet on daycares. So they have the ability to look at surrounding communities and the daycare businesses that are in those communities, do a analysis on them as far as that business, where does their customer base come from, and see what bleed we have in Pacific that's going to these other daycares. So that is something that's in the works, and they're going to get back with me on. Unfortunately, I won't have that for today's meeting at 3 o'clock, which is a prospective daycare interest coming to town. I've also asked them if they would generate, from June 25th, a snapshot of Pacific on the rodeo, or on the car show, as well as the rodeo coming up, if they would do an analysis for us for tourism's benefit to see where all of the folks come from that attend those events. So that's our next site update.
So we think so far it's been worthwhile to start this process, and it was worth the spend?
Yet that remains to be seen. You know, they're telling me that they've reached out to these companies, but I don't have a list of companies that they've reached out to.
Do they not provide that, or did we not ask?
Well, I haven't asked, so I will.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know who they are and
Right.
kind of where they're at. Just to ensure that, I mean, checking up on them's a good idea. Here's all the places we did reach out to, and ensuring that that was actually done. But I also think it'd be nice for us to know kind of where that stands, and what kind of level of businesses they're looking at, so.
Can I add to that just a bit? I have not been closely involved. Steve's been talking with Mr. Branch more closely than I, but they did provide some preliminary information soon after we engaged them, and it was quite interesting. It really was. It showed certain markets that were underserved, where they believed that there was a need in the community for various types of business, and then of course there were, on the flip side of that, there were areas that they felt were overserved. I have really not spoke to Mr. Branch since that time. I don't want to get into detail now, but again, it was very interesting to see what the data shows for our community relative to market. And that's really the conversation I want to have with him. Where does he think our opportunities are, what the data shows? And then, of course, what he's done as far as, his actual outreach and so forth. And again, Steve has had more conversation with him than I. The way I kind of view him is he's kind of a matchmaker. He looks at our data, he finds out where the needs are, and then he reaches out to those businesses and tries to, match us up. And we're still in the early phases of it, but I think it'd be very interesting to find just where those matches might be. So the base camp stuff that Steve's working on is going to be more information that he would then use, of course, the consultant. And then ultimately what I want to do is have a meeting with myself, Steve, like to involve the mayor at minimum. I don't think this should be a public meeting, frankly, but potentially adjourn a little committee, convene a little committee. But one way or another, I think it's very important that we use the tool and try to get as much insight as we can over what we should be focusing on, where those opportunities are.
You guys have any questions?
Not really. I think it's a great process. Data is one of the most beneficial things a city can have to help entice other businesses to come into the community. So knowing what areas we fall short and what areas are overserved is very beneficial. So I'm excited about that process, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that gets played. And just because I think as we all know, Pacific is in a great location for many things, and some of the past years, a couple of years, have really drove that home more so than ever. And I think with this information, we'll be able to actually showcase Pacific better. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Anything to add?
No, nothing to add.
Okay.
I agree with what he just said.
Excellent. Is there anything in addition to what was on the agenda that we needed to talk about today?
Yeah, I'd like to just address the budget question. The original contract value was $2,164,189. The total contract value now, with the change orders and deducts, as you know, there's been a lot of pluses and minuses, but the total contract value now is $2,256,643, a difference of $92,000. In percentage terms, it's 4.2%, and I don't like change orders at all, but I can tell you that this project did certainly have a lot of different opportunities for change orders. Again, pluses and minuses. For the project to be within 4.2% of its original contract value, I think is just excellent. I really do. I give credit to Navigate, the project manager, and the whole team for its work there. The one other thing, site. The site work, I don't know. Have we been given a start date for that?
It'll happen this month, as far as the parking lot will be paved, done by the end of this month.
Right. That was my recollection as well, but obviously we're getting close to the middle of the month. And then finally, Kelly, there's one, Kelly's been, on the ground for a little while now. She's part of the Red Cedar team. One thing that she had wanted to do is utilize this back room. There's that back room to the Red Cedar that was added, and she would like to use that as a kid zone. So, Kelly, why don't you fill the committee in on that?
I put out a survey when I first started, kind of asking folks what they thought. Would it be something that they'd be interested in? Approximately 79% of the folks that answered that said yes, they would like to have an interactive museum for the children. Well, we would move the genealogy center over to the front building of the Parks and Rec building. The cool thing about that is it is very level, so folks that may not have the ability to walk as well can walk straight in. All of the material would still be there. We can actually utilize a couple of the other rooms that aren't genealogy, but there's a lot of good history about Pacific that doesn't fit in the museum and doesn't fit into genealogy of just the families. But there's some binders with wonderful pictures of events that have been there before. So nothing would change with genealogy except it would just literally shift over to the other building. In the back for the Children's Museum, it would be no additional cost. I would be taking some of the money from the exhibit budget, because we would be putting it from the exhibits into that. I do have like a PowerPoint that I can send to you if you want to see it too, of some suggestions. Have a draw live, an animated sandbox, some color changing tables. When you walk in, you'd go directly to your right. There would be a counter. Above that would be all the museum information. Whatever our rotating exhibit is out front, so say it's trains, we'll have a smaller museum in the back for kids that would be about trains, have a video on trains that would be geared more towards kids. There would also be interactive stuff to the left. There would be a video that would be playing so they could see that we'd also have a touch screen back there as well, so they could get more in depth of that. I did put like a price point together if you want to see my estimation of how much we would take from the main museum and put it over into the children's exhibit. I don't think it's a really high cost. I think it would be good. I think it would be great for the team and the folks out here in Pacific and those coming in. It'd give them something to do with their children, because the activities would also be interactive for families as well. You wouldn't just have to be a child to go back there. The research I did for the genealogy center of how many folks would be using it, this is the results from this. A lot of it says 0, none, never, but I still think it's important to have. So I don't want to get rid of it. I just want to shift it. And the good news about if I can shift it, we can start working on that right now. That would be complete. So when the museum opens, we can spend all of our time over there. And you're more than welcome to look at any of this information, or I can send it to you.
Can you email that to us?
Absolutely, I can email it to all of you.
That'd be great.
And I'll send you all the survey results. I just think it would be really good for everybody in the town and for folks. It would bring them in. It's something that no town around here has. So what are your thoughts? I still am going to bring this up to the tourism and the Historical Society. I talked to some of the folks from the Historical Society. The folks I have talked to like it. I still have to address the entire committee though, so.
Excellent. And then, I lost my train of thought I was going to say. So then you'll email us all of that.
Yes.
I can't remember what I was going to say. What were you guys?
Well, I just think it's a great idea to add this into the museum. I think that anytime you can help involve a full family inside and experience it makes a big difference. I'll never forget when I was a kid, McDonald's Happy Meals got our whole family to go to McDonald's. Nowadays, kids pick where they go, you know. And, but it's also a great addition to the community, just like you said, our schools can take advantage of it, use it as field trip days. Other schools in different communities can do the same. So I think it's a big, big game changer, quite frankly, to an idea of a more interaction into the museum as a family, not as just people that are curious about history or Route 66 or however that forms. But that's fantastic. Good job on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think family trips and stuff that are coming down Route 66, they're not going to stop if there's anything for kids. I mean, kids are going to be like, I don't got a boring museum. So, yeah, definitely whatever we can do for kids is going to make a big difference.
So then, procedurally, do you need us to motion a recommendation for that, or does it just go straight to the board?
Yeah, so let me kind of tag on to that. What I've asked Kelly to do is put down a operations plan or a type of business plan for operating the center. And you're not ready with that, I assume, correct?
No, I emailed it to you.
You did? When?
Last week. I emailed it to you and Kim.
Sorry.
You should have a PowerPoint, a written proposal, the cost with links, and there are 4 things I sent over to you, so.
Well, I apologize.
That's
for,
okay.
Any case, so I honestly really don't recall getting it, but
You didn't respond, so I was like, maybe it's too long.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. Sorry, but any case,
But good job getting it done.
Here's a written one if you need to see that.
so thank you for that. As far as decision making over the operation of the center, then I want that to be the basis of it, right? At some point, this is going to go to tourism, to the Board of Aldermen, and then there's going to be some sort of board action over the plan. And this little decision that we're talking about right now, I think would be a part of that plan. I don't think it would be very efficient for us to, break it up into many little decisions. Kelly, I've given her pretty free rein, develop your plan for it. The survey she did was excellent. It was really great, a lot of good feedback. You obviously share that with the committee here and the board. But ultimately then, again, the board would give its blessing to the plan going forward. So does that sound acceptable?
Yeah.
I have a question. So Kelly, will that plan include the Wintech building and the genealogy, the use of that partial of that building for genealogy?
What do you mean?
The operations of the whole thing?
So the operations, what the plan is, and it's in the written proposal, is it could operate the same time as the museum unless somebody from high school has a project, they can call, make an appointment, and we can go over and open it up. So say it's Saturdays it'll usually be open. If we know that, hey, we're not getting a lot of folks coming, we can just keep the doors locked. They can come over to Red Cedar, say, hey, I would like to use the genealogy, and then myself or whoever's working can go over and
Gotcha.
open it up.
More along the lines of my question was, it's been open-ended as far as what the permanent use of the Wintech building would be. And so right now, it's being utilized for genealogy, storage of the museum artifacts, and parks. But in parks operation out of that, Parks and Rec. So the genealogy side of it is perfectly suited for them. And What's not being utilized is that very front room to the right. When you first come in, it's kind of a little reception area. That's not being used just yet. But as far as the record storage and the archives of all the genealogy files and binders, pretty well fills the space.
Yes, yes, it does.
But it gives them room to be able to sort through things. And as we get closer to moving everything into the Red Cedar building, it's going to give them even more room to be able to move and work around. So having half of that building used as genealogy, I think is really wise. And then the other half, it remains to be seen. But if it's Parks and Rec until there's another facility, that's a great use too. And one thing I just want to remind everybody of is when that grant was made for that building, it locked us into using it for parks and recreational kind of use. So the genealogy is absolutely a part of that whole park complex. So I just wanted to remind you of that.
Sure. Absolutely.
I had one other thing I wanted to share with you. I reached out to Grant Waymeyer, who's with the construction companies, our general contractor, just to verify the parking lot date of expectation, because Kelly raised that, hey, in one of the conversations we had recently, I think they pushed that out a little bit, and so they did indeed. And the reason why is because of the sewer line that needs to be installed by our guys. The city has to do that, and he's been trying to get it for an August 11th dig, but they're backed up, so it may push past that. So I asked him if there's a schedule for the paving completion now, and the new target date is September 23rd, without any further delays. So there you go. Won't be this month.
But at least they're putting in everything underneath before we pave it, and then they
Right.
have to tear it back like that would be really
Right.
disappointing.
Another thing we're doing is we've already stubbed the electric for a future EV charging station, if we ever decide to put one in. But we're also going to stub the electric for this new sign location on the parking lot, so that'll be done too.
Excellent.
Just a quick, so Kelly and I may be talking about different things. Yes, she's given us a very thorough proposal for the children's piece. What I was talking about was that more broader proposal where we talk about the equipment that you would need if we do food service in the building, what that would look like, the popcorn machine, that type of stuff.
Oh, yeah, I have not done a proposal on the bar side just yet.
Right. So that's kind of what I was getting at. At some point, again, my vision is the board will have to be presented with an overall operations plan. Here's how we're operating, rather than try to pick and choose. Are we going to have popcorn or, whatever in the restaurant, motion and prove that? No. My vision, again, is try to do it all in this one operations plan. It'd come to the board in the form of a resolution, and then that would give her and staff, frankly, authority to move forward on some of these items. The purchasing pieces, right? I can only spend up to $5,000, so I'd ask Kelly to give me estimates if we have to buy certain pieces of equipment. And I don't know that we're going to get it all done in one single action, but to the best of our ability, if we can take care of a lot of those big pieces in that one action, then, we can just kind of get the operation or the center equipped, operated, so forth. So that's what I was referring to. So,
Okay.
Any case. And then maybe one other thing on Derek Pryor. He is designing certain exhibits, my understanding, that he would then put out for bid to various, the people that would fabricate these exhibits. Do we have any information on that time frame? That's really what has concerned me.
That's my concern as well. The folks that he had talked to, it wouldn't be here till next year. I gave him the name of the folks that Washington used, so he's reached out to them. They are also about 12 weeks out, but he was going to go and meet with them. He also talked about building them ourselves and talking to Rick about possibly getting the glass for the cases.
Okay, that's somewhat helpful, sure. I have not spoke to him in, I don't know, it's been a little while when we had that meeting. Maybe it was in July timeframe. even earlier when Steve and I last met with him. But just as Kelly described, it sounds like the lead time in some of the fabrication is getting quite lengthy. And from process standpoint, obviously, this all goes to the board. So, fitting this all in and getting the center equipped with these exhibits appears to be becoming a challenge. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So just FYI to you all, we will work on it, but again, it seems like some of this stuff has been somewhat delayed for various reasons.
Excellent. Anything else, Steve?
No. There will be no tourism commission meeting tomorrow, no quorum, but we do look forward to working with them, obviously, on the project. Kelly has actually not met with the full commission yet, but so yeah, we're obviously making progress, and I give Kelly a lot of credit for the work she's done at this point.
Thank you.
Excellent. You gentlemen have anything to add today?
I do not.
I do not.
Excellent. Kelly, anything to add?
I have.
I forgot about Samuel. We'll get to him in just a sec. Mr. Myers, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Sam, did you have anything to add? I apologize.
Not specifically. I was just asked to kind of come and maybe answer any questions we had about rodeo planning. So Mr. Myers, myself, and Josh Sachs with Bankstar are working on rodeo. As we know, rodeo is coming up. It's about a month away, and there was multiple recommendations. So one of the things that we talked about coming out of last year was the need for a professional company to come in and manage our gate, collecting money, collecting tickets, and managing how people park so that we can kind of park them in a more efficient manner. So at the car show this year, we had a company called Array of Events come in, and so that is a local company by Shauna Ray Jackson. She's actually my business partner on the Royal Project. So I've worked with her multiple times in the past, and they were able to come in and help manage the gates. They had a wealth of people from their church, the Ridge Church, which is going in the new Autorama building. So it's really a local group of citizens that are helping. And so they have put together a proposal with me for helping for the rodeo. Last year, to give you some knowledge, the city spends $1,000 to give to the volunteers who help with managing the gate. So last year we had PHS Band Boosters, which is PHS Band Booster Parents. It's also band students. So we had 16-year-olds working. We also had 45-year-olds working. That did not work very well. So going into it this year, one of Andy's main concerns was finding a company that would be able to do that. We weren't really able to find a company per se, but we are able to use this company and this group of volunteers that is in reality a bunch of men from their church. Great though, because people listen to them, people don't argue with them, and they also own a moving company. They can be very direct as needed. Anyway, so that proposal included 14 staff members each evening, and for that, we estimated it would be an increase to $2,000 that we would give them. So if basically all I did was take $20 an hour and multiplied that by the 14 people and the hours that we were asking them to work, and it roughly came to about $1,960, $2,000. I wouldn't want to undershoot or undervalue them with the chance that they pretty much just turn us away. And then also it is supporting obviously a local both business and church, so there is that. I put that proposal and sent that to Mr. Myers so we could increase that budget item. And then some other things that we talked about was a potential increase in price for rodeo attendees. That proposal was also given to Mr. Myers. I do not believe that we should go about trying to change that a month before the event from last year. However, but that is something to look at for next year. Another thing to look at would be weekend pricing, and this was all put together into a recommendation a few months ago. So take a look at that when you guys can, maybe for next year. And then the only other thing to note is last year we did online or credit card sales, if you will, through a service. We determined that that service took roughly 24% of those ticket sales, and we weren't going to utilize that for such a large event this year. It also created some logistical problems at the gate, so we determined that the best course of action would be to move forward using paper tickets locally printed through Stratman Printing. And those would be sold at all of our area banks, Bank Star, First State Community Bank, and Citizens Bank, and they've all been contacted, reached, and have graciously approved selling those tickets for us ahead of time. So there's a lot to go over there. Like I said, get with Myers to get those recommendations so that we can review the pricing for next year. We did do some research on area events, the Washington Fair, and some other, I think the Gerald Rodeo as well. But there aren't many rodeos that are around us. But we did look at anyone that did have a rodeo and what they were charging. And it was roughly in line with what we were doing. Some of it was cheaper, some of it was more expensive. But if you look at our rodeo, last year it was very well attended. The first night we had way more than the second night, mainly because there was supposed to be a big storm the second night. And we are limited on the amount of bleachers that we get to bring in because there's pretty much only one company locally, and it's our company, Clancy Unlimited, that provides those stages or those bleachers for within a 250-mile radius, roughly, is what they are telling me. So we are limited on the amount of bleachers versus how many people come. So one aspect you might look at when determining whether or not we should increase the prices is the supply and demand of the actual experience. We had a lot of people telling us last year on that first day that they couldn't find a spot to sit, so they were pretty much just going to all the vendors and being within the atmosphere, but they couldn't really see the rodeo. So I wouldn't want to sell more tickets and then have more people there and then more people have a bad experience. So those are all things that I would look at whenever determining those prices in the future. So does anyone have any specific questions?
Yeah, do you know what the capacity is? I mean, is there a way that we can, like, only have that many tickets for each night?
We could. We haven't looked specifically at our seating capacity, so that's one thing that we could do. I would say the seating capacity is likely much less than how many tickets we are selling, because there is the large number of both kids and other attendees that aren't actually going to be sitting at the rodeo the entire time. Definitely something we can look at, though.
But, yeah, I think the big thing is
Absolutely.
percentage-wise. Like, if 20% of them don't need a seat, okay.
Right.
But,
Absolutely.
because, yeah, I'd hate to get in a situation where you double sell and people are standing around like, wow.
We've tried to, we've contacted Clancy and requested more bleachers. I think the next move was having a meeting with them, with Myers and Josh Sachs and myself, to ask that question in person. But we've asked for more bleachers. They don't specifically, I believe, have all of the ones that we would need. However, like I said, there aren't any other companies really that do that in our area. So if anyone knows of anyone who has bleachers, that's something that we need.
Well, we have brought some in from the school district in the past.
Correct, and those are still going to be brought in. That's still not enough. With the recent improvements that that have been made to the rodeo ring through Myers' effort to improve the area, includes the big swale in the culvert. Essentially, a culvert pipe was put in, the swale was leveled around the south side of the rodeo ring, which allows for way more bleacher seating to be placed there if we could get a hold of some of the bleachers. So it may just be more of a long-term thing where over the next few years we save up and we have to purchase those bleachers over time. But right now, we're kind of stagnant with that.
Wanted to comment on the ticket sales. Is there any other than just banks? I mean, could you talk to B&H? The only reason I'm thinking about that is
We
because
were,
bankers' hours.
we were
people-
also going to identify and contact B&H and then save a lot as well. So our
Okay.
local grocery stores and banks.
Awesome.
And then obviously on-site as well. There'll be, last year, one of the major improvements from last year to this year was last year on-site, if someone walked through our gate and wanted to pay with a credit card, we could do it. It was going to take some time, and still the same thing's going to happen this year. However, last year we didn't have any ATMs on-site. This year we were able to find some ATMs and enter that agreement, so we will have 2 ATMs on-site, and 1 will be at the gate. So if someone wants to, show up with their credit card and purchase it, we don't have to send them out of the gate, which was a huge problem last year. Trying to get a car turned around when there's 50,000 people trying to come in your gate, you got to get them out the gate. But this year we will have ATMs, so they should be able to purchase everything on site, and we wouldn't want to have any issues with that. So,
Just one little correction, we're not 50,000.
no, well, yeah.
Well, that's the goal.
Yeah. I think the Cardinals had their max number of attendance was 48,600 or something like that.
Yeah, that was.
We're beating Busch Stadium out
That's
here in
50,000.
Pacific.
No, it was 3,500, 5,000. But
We're more like,
you get the sentiment. It backs up all the way to Osage, so we're trying to mitigate that.
The biggest rodeo in the world here.
it's really weather related as far as our turnout goes, largely, but 2,000 to 3,000 people on a really good night. And that has happened in the past where we'd have
Last year
max capacities both nights.
It was
Yeah.
about 3,000 to 3,500 last year, the first night.
Yeah,
It
we had a
was
record-setting rodeo last year.
Can I ask a question? So if I'm understanding you correctly, we put that culvert in, we smoothed out that area to the south, but right now we don't have any bleachers to put there. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Has there been any conversation with Clancy about purchasing a set of bleachers?
The idea has been brought up to Clancy. Yes.
We purchased a set of bleachers from them. I'm going to say probably 2 seasons ago, and I think it would be interesting to see what they would quote that same unit.
Do we
at.
know how
I-
much that was then?
I don't recall exactly.
I did ask Kyle for a quote on that, and I have not heard back yet.
Okay, yeah, all right. It would be interesting to see that number. We do have some money in what we call the Rodeo Fund. I
Right.
think you're aware of that.
Yep.
And if there's a scramble on for bleachers, my recollection, I think those bleachers cost in the neighborhood of 20,000.
Okay. Well, I think
you
the
know-
sentiment is if we can get more bleachers, I can grow the event.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a little bit of, you can buy them but then you might have a down year because of weather, whatever.
Absolutely.
But it still would be nice to basically kind of equip the ring to, accommodate the crowds we hope we get. So yeah, if we get that number, I'd like to see it.
Okay.
And then, just as a secondary note, I know this is bleachers that are specifically for the rodeo ring. I will say that myself and Kelly are working on looking at other events. What can we add that can take place in the rodeo ring without it actually being a rodeo? So what other events can be profitable, can be positive events for the city, using the resources that we already have. So it is our goal to increase the number of events rather than just, a 1-2 day event once a year. We would like to introduce some other events that would make that a more profitable space. However, we haven't really pinpointed what we want to go with yet, but there is more events on the horizon for that area. I am for darn sure.
Very good.
So,
Any questions for Sam? Excellent. Thank you, Sam.
thank you, appreciate it.
And if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would make that motion.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Wow, that mic's hot.